So I wanted to discuss Sun-Uranus aspects in the natal chart. Before I begin, I will say I do have the window closed, but there's some kids playing very loudly outside, so I hope that doesn't come through too much. It's a lovely day outside today, so I can understand why kids are playing outside. So Sun-Uranus aspects are aspects of intuitive behavior and intuition in general. So what that means is that your behavior is guided, or if you look at this particular part of your personality, it's like your behavior in some ways is guided a lot by intuition, right? So that can show up in so many different ways, and you can have trines, you can have squares, oppositions. There's a lot of different. You can have blendings like conjunctions. So there's a lot of different ways that it can show up. But Sun Uranus has very much to do with flashes of insight that make you act or behave in a certain way, right? So Sun Uranus can show up, for example, with a square. I have the square myself. With a square, it can show up in a way where your behavior is guided by intuition in such a way that it can actually cause internal tension. There's a tension in getting out the energy and the ideas that you have inside, and it can cause friction also in situations in your life, maybe with other people, right? So I think with the square between Sun and Uranus, what's happening is that the energy of Uranus is not well integrated into your personality in a way, right? So it comes out in this kind of behavior at times that's maybe unexpected or erratic in some way, in a way that it can cause problems, right? So this can be the person that has all these intuitive ideas, and they don't always have a good outlet for them. So then that can come out in sudden behavior or very outspoken behavior sometimes. Rebellious behavior sometimes, whereas with something with, like, let's say you have the trine between Sun and Uranus, there's a gentler energy, right? It's Sun and Uranus are interacting in a way where everything is like better integrated, right? So with for example the trine between Sun and Uranus, your personality has the Uranian energy in a way that is more charming, right? So you're able to maybe express certain insights or certain intuitions better in a way where there's less friction going on. There's less of a problem being caused internally because of this connection between Sun and Uranus, right? So whereas Sun square Uranus means that there's some kind of inner tension or confusion when it comes to trying to integrate Sun and Uranus together and have them get along really well, to the point where you can have very rebellious or sudden or outspoken or eccentric behavior. Whereas Sun trine Uranus, for example, is one that shows that these energies are now blending in a harmonious way, in the sense that, like, you can actually also be seen as eccentric or sudden or outspoken or rebellious, but it's in a way that it's more charming, and there's less things that are getting in the way of your interactions with other people when it comes to this part of you. So with Sun square Uranus, you can have times when you act in a way where it will cause issues with you and in certain situations with people, for example, because these energies, Uranus, Sun, they're not working in a way where it's super well integrated. You're still working at this, right? And it's not to say that squares are bad and trines are good or something like that, but I think with squares, it just shows that there's still more that you're working on when it comes to these energies, these parts of you. So I know from my own experience that having Sun square Uranus means that I am dealing on some level with an unintegrated Uranus in a way. So I have ideas and I have things that I want to do or intuit, but there's sometimes a blockage. Not all the time, but sometimes there's like a blockage in, and I've read this about this aspect as well, that sometimes there's like a blockage in trying to, when it comes to expressing your intuitions or your insights or your ideas with people in a way that it can cause erratic behavior, sudden behavior, sometimes explosive, or some kind of electric behavior. Electrifying. Uranus is also like electricity. So whatever aspect is present between Sun and Uranus, it is indicative of the soul's desire to take on a character that is seen as original, or that is very original, can be eccentric, can be, the one that comes up with outlandish ideas. That is part of your psyche. It's a theme in your life, right? It's not that people with other aspects, maybe somebody who doesn't have Sun Uranus aspect, they can still be eccentric, they can still be original or seen as original, but it is not as much of a theme in this kind of way, I would say. Like if you're carrying a Sun Uranus signature in your birth chart, you are essentially choosing to, and if this is one way of looking at it, you're essentially choosing, or you have chosen, to work with the energies of Sun and Uranus in a way that you will be the idea person, you will be the intuition, the intuitive person. You're coming up with sudden insights, and that guides a lot of your behavior, which is like the Sun, right? So Sun trine Uranus, Sun sextile Uranus, it can be like this charming, eccentric person, for example, who comes up with interesting ideas for things to do for themselves or others. These energies are well integrated. There's less tension going on internally. There's less shame maybe about being a Uranian character. Whereas with something like Sun square Uranus, you can have there can be, I think this is one expression of it, I know from personal experience as well, there can be a sense of shame to some degree when it comes to your own Uranian character. So you know that you can be impulsive, you know that you can be sudden in your behaviors, but there isn't maybe you didn't get validated for this. I think maybe with something like the trine, you get validated for your, weirdness or your unusual ideas, that people find it interesting. With Sun square Uranus, people can still find it interesting, but I think there maybe was less validation about it. And in some cases, Sun square Uranus people can even bring about certain situations in their lives where maybe other people are opposed to them because they seem like they're opposed to others in some way. Sun Uranus people, particularly with something like the square, maybe even the opposition, can be somebody who is on some level kind of opposed to society or opposed to other people. They think that their way is, what they should do always. So they're less likely to sort of listen to other people's viewpoints or listen to, in some cases it can be very listen to rules. Like in some cases it can be very rebellious sort of people that come out of this kind of aspect as well. And it's not like it's like that your whole life. You will have the aspect your whole life, but you can grow from it. You can grow within that. So I've had periods in my life where with the square, I've been much more impulsive, erratic, even rebellious at times. But then it kind of changed, and it kind of changed into a different kind of expression. So I think now my Sun square Uranus would be more of this thing of where I have like ideas that I'm trying to express, but there's a bit of a blockage at times in the way that I express them in some situations. So it can mean that people don't always understand the thought patterns that are going on or what I'm trying to say. Or I feel like that on the inside in some sense. There's also other aspects that point to this as well, but yeah. And also being sometimes seen in certain ways that doesn't necessarily match up with how I see myself, or being seen as unusual in some way can be a Sun Uranus theme as well. And like I say, with some aspects, like for example the trine and the sextile, this can be an extremely beneficial, charming part of you, right? because your behavior and your ego and your personality are guided by this electric Uranus, right? In a way where it's actually interesting for people, right? They find it interesting, and they don't find it disruptive as much as with the square or even the opposition, right? I think Sun-Uranus, well, I mean, Sun-Uranus, no matter what aspect it is, it can be disruptive in some way. It can disrupt your inner sense of self. It can disrupt your relationships with people. It can disrupt, like you can be the person disrupting meetings or something like that as well. But it can also, you know, be the person, you can be the person with these aspects who people do find interesting, and they're drawn to this kind of maybe slightly intellectual energy, like a charming intellectualism. Or, you know, you can just be the idea person that people are drawn to, or you can be the eccentric person with your own ideas, your own ways of doing things that people find attractive. That can happen. So overall, I would say that with certain aspects with Uranus, like trine and sextile, your maybe more outlandish ideas are less likely to cause a lot of friction inside or externally within situations in your life. And with something like the square opposition, you can actually draw certain situations to yourself or certain people, especially with the opposition. The opposition has a lot to do with relationships. Especially with the opposition, you can kind of draw certain people to you that show you these parts of you that, like, listen, you're too out there and I'm having a hard time with it. Like, they might say something like that. And with the square, it might be an inner tension of like, okay, I know that there's a certain uniqueness that I want to express, but I'm also ashamed of it, or I'm also scared to show it in some way. Or I might keep finding myself in situations where my uniqueness or what I'm trying to express is opposed in some way. So either I don't show it because of my fear or because of my shame, or I do show it and it creates some kind of issue, right? That can happen with Sun-Uranus. But I mean, there's more that I could say. These were some of the thoughts that I had about it today, though. I've made a Sun-Uranus video a long time ago before that maybe didn't cover everything that I covered here. But if I have any more thoughts about Sun-Uranus, I'll definitely make another video, because I feel like there's a lot that can be unpacked with this. And if you do want more from me, do subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you like this, and leave a comment if you have experiences with this aspect and what you make of it. So thank you so much for watching. Take care.